episode of The Last Brain Cell, which is Born Wired. So, this episode will be done by me and Shreyaka. So, very excited to be doing that. And I think we have, yeah. So, yeah, let's get started. I'll present my screen. All right. Okay, so this episode of The Last Brain Cell is called Born Wired, and we're going to be looking into soft neuroimplants in embryonic development. Okay, so we do know that brain implants have been around for a really long time. I don't know if all of most of us know that, but it has been, you know, talked about and experimented in since the 1950s. So the first brain stimulations were done in animals by Delgado's remote control experiments. This person sort of started the whole exploring with poking around in the brain part. So that's where it's all started. And also I think some of us would know that deep brain stimulation is an FDA approved method for Parkinson's, and it was approved in 1987. And then slowly we had other stuff coming up. The Utah array introduced um, recording brain activity for research and everything. That is where it started. And then we come to brain computer interfaces, where your brain and the computer can sort of interact. And this was started with the Brain Gate project, where paralyzed patients were able to control cursors and robotic arms. It sort of sounds far fetched, but it started in the 2000s, which is pretty hard to believe. That is one. And cochlear implants. I think some of us would have seen those tiny, like round shape, like coin shaped things attached near the temple region. So that is also something that sort of connected through the auditory nerve to the brain. That is another thing that came up. And in 2016, like I have to talk about this, Elon Musk founded Neuralink, and his goal was to merge humans with AI using high bandwidth BCIs. So whatever we've heard, okay, recently, very recently, like 4 days back, we got a video on how this person who was unable to use his forelimbs was able to control a mouse cursor and was able to draw an image. So it happened as recently as 4 days ago, like the video. But there has been obviously been a lot happening over the years, and he demonstrated um, he demonstrated it in like monkeys, and his I think there was another pig, if I'm not wrong. So that, and he also made a surgery, like he made the robot that would precisely implant these structures. So what he did was skull implantation, where it was precisely implanted in the skull with small fragments reaching out into the brain. So that was what Elon Musk did. Recently, in June, precisely 21st of June, we got a paper from it was in Nature by Sheng et al. So these people introduced about how we can start all of this at a very early stage, which is the embryonic stage. So the first ever implantation of soft stretchable electrode mesh into embryos. So they tried this in frogs and axolots. I think axolots are those cute little animals that we keep seeing on random, Nat Geo channels or something. But yeah, they were implanted since like they were an embryo, and they were experimented on. They implanted at neural plate stage, which we will be looking into. I will be breaking down from the very basic for us to understand this. And yeah, so it integrates when it's implanted at an early stage. it integrates everything pretty organically, and it allows a pretty much lifelong single neuron level brain recording and stimulation. So we'll also be looking into why this is, more, why the embryonic implantation is a bit more, even though as scary as it sounds, that you're being, wired, you're being born wired, it is much more feasible, and why we'll be delving into that. Okay, so for those who are interested, this is the paper. Okay, I got the date wrong. It's 11th June, but this is the paper in Nature, so you can look into it if you like. Okay, so I have a video here on prenatal brain development, so we get an idea of how what naturally happens. Can you guys hear?
Roshna, we are not able to hear the
Oh,
sound of the video.
okay. Yeah, I thought that was happening, but
Just try sharing audio while you're screen sharing also. I think that should work.
okay. Mm, can you guys hear now? No.
No.
Okay. I'm just gonna play with subtitles. I think, yeah, that is what is required for us to understand. Let's just stop there. After this, it's completely, how the whole brain is wired and everything, which is not required as of now. We're looking into the whole feasibility aspect of this. So, okay. So, yeah, so why we're calling this the window of opportunity. So, as you guys saw, the whole the brain and the spinal cord form from the neural plate, which sort of bends and then forms the spinal cord, and then that kind of elongates and gets differentiated into the forebrain, midbrain, and so on. So, what what we're thinking here is there is going to be high plasticity, and the device would integrate naturally. And since this is still a fetus, it does not have any sort of, memory of or immunity or anything. So there is no immune response. It has minimal immune response. So yeah, this is how it would look like. So when your um, neurogenesis is taking place, to be precise, you implant your um, the mesh, which is very flexible. It is. I'll next move on into explaining about how this mesh is made, but it is very, as you can see, it's very flexible. It's literally made of gold wires, and when it's placed on that, it conforms along with the folding of the neural plate. So as you can see, towards like the when it's like almost, sort of well developed for this stage, you can see that it's sort of spans, the whole brain, and it sort of, extends into the spinal cord. So in this case, what you're seeing, this thing that says I/O connector, is the scientists here made sure that a part sort of sticks out of its brain as as it doesn't sound very nice, but it does stick out of its brain. And this whole study was conducted by connecting this wire to an outside device, and recording sort of how all the signals that go on within the brain and kind of reading the brain. That is what happened here, but it was done by implanting in the embryonic stage. Okay, so coming to the bioelectronic mesh, as bio students, it's going to be really hard for us to understand what this whole. I don't want to go into the semiconductor thing again. I cannot do that again. But soft mesh, this is called soft mesh electronics, and they're first. It's like it's made on glass. Like glass is used as the plate, and it's like sort of making an electronic tattoo. Sort of is what happens here, and during so this so it includes gold electrodes and like a flexible tail. The tail is what I showed you guys earlier, where it sort of extends outside and it is can be accessed from outside. So after they sort of build it on a plate, all the specifics are definitely not important, but yeah, it's made of gold and it's made of some other flexible materials that are going to be lifelong, and they can be that can conform along with how the brain grows. So the researchers connect the outside whatever sticks out to recording devices to listen to the brain or stimulate it. We'll be going into that next. Yeah. So also right now it's done through wires, but if this is researched upon even more, it can be Bluetooth or wireless. Okay, how this works, the recording and modulation part. So when we implant something into the embryo's brain, we have two different modes. That is recording what is happening in the brain, and stimulating that we are also sort of doing something, and sending small electrical pulses, and we are doing something from the outside, and we are also learning what is happening on the inside. These are the two modes. So once embedded, the mesh electrodes can record action potentials from the neurons, essentially reading the brain's electrical language. So, for those who found it confusing, like, okay, you're implanting, then what happens next? Like, how exactly is this mesh going to, help? How is it going to be, useful? It reads the brain's, the neurons' action potentials. You do know that the synapses and everything. So, that action potentials. So, it can also send signals back, influencing the brain's activity, for example, to stimulate regeneration or test network responses. So, what happened was, like in the study that I showed you in the paper, in the axolot models, stimulation via this implant helped to modulate brain activity during limb regeneration. So, we can potentially see this being useful when you have people that are disabled in certain ways, or you need to stimulate some parts which cannot be naturally done. In that way, we can definitely see this, like as we currently see right now, it is being used for that, but people are pushing the limits, but right now it's being used for helping the disabled. So the whole embryonic implantation will make sure that the implant is not rejected, because first of all it conforms along with the brain, and second of all, an embryo practically doesn't have a lot of not a lot of it doesn't have any immunity. So in that way it is very you know um, doable for us as well. And there's a small number of problems compared to when the person is fully grown and you're trying to implant something, which is something that is still being done here. But this is definitely going to be it's going to be a stretch to try and get this approved, but it does have a lot of benefits. So again, the capabilities are millisecond level resolution because it's literally completely spanning your brain, and it can work during sleep, and it can regenerate any sort of cells or tissues that you need. It monitors your learning, and definitely it's long term compared to what we currently have, which is not long term. It is monthly, or as far as I know, it's monthly or yearly. But this, once it's implanted into your brain, you cannot take it out, and it it is going to be like a lifelong thing. Yeah.
All right. So yeah. So as Roshna has covered, she has told you about how it actually works. But with any biotechnological advancement, there comes the question of ethics. So we need to know if it is ethically right, if it actually complies according to the laws which are existing or not. So, and in this case, it is embryonic. So, it is quite different compared to your normal scenarios. So, we'll be having quite a few questions in the upcoming slides, which you might want to ponder about, which precisely don't have any answer yet, but that is what we are aiming to achieve. That is what researchers are looking into, so that if this technology actually comes out and it is very successful, we will know what are its actual implications and how we can address them. So that is what the next few slides are going to be about. So first, privacy before birth. So who actually owns a baby's brain data? Now imagine this: your brain data, which is your thoughts, your emotional patterns, or your attention signals, all of this is being tracked before you were even born. So can you consent to that, or can your parents, or does the data belong to someone else entirely? So that is actually the question we'll be diving into. Let's imagine a fetus implanted with a tiny, soft bioelectronic device. It records your brain waves to predict the neurodevelopmental disorders or help with any future enhancement. But who owns that stream of data? Can it be the unborn child, but they are not actually a legal person yet? Or can it be the parents? Sure, they do make the decisions, but do they actually own the neural data? Or to be more realistically speaking, will it be the company, the biotech company, who's actually owning this device? So think of today's smart devices. If you actually don't read the terms, your data often ends up with them. So actually today there's no law, not even in the most advanced privacy frameworks like GDPR, that directly addresses fetal or neural data ownership. So now here's the tricky part. Parents already give consent for medical procedures in utero, like surgeries or experimental gene therapies, etc. But neural implants aren't like fixing a heart defect. They might actually shape personality, memory, or even emotional response. So, can a parent ethically give consent to a system that could influence their child's future self awareness? Emerging fields of neuroethics says that this falls into a new category entirely. So first is mental privacy, which is the right to keep your thoughts unmonitored, and cognitive liberty, which is the right to shape your own mental processes. So, in this regard, Chile became the first country to start writing this into law in around 2021 to protect neuro rights like identity and agency. Now, so what happens if something actually goes wrong? Like, what if brain data can get hacked or sold or even misused before the child is even born? So, GDPR is strong on health and biometric data, but it says nothing about fetal or neural activity. HIPAA, on the other hand, protects medical info, but it is not designed for streaming brain activity. So, the law is far behind the technology, and that's dangerous. So we built laws for DNA privacy, for facial recognition, for fingerprints, etc. But are we ready for brain prints of the womb? So that is a question for us to ponder about. Next, let's go deeper. If you can implant something into a fetal brain, can you shape consciousness itself? Rashna, can you move next slide? Okay, so now imagine this, opening your eyes for the first time and already having neural software helping you process the world faster. guiding your memory, managing emotions, or shaping how you experience reality. Now, take it one step further. If what if your brain never got the chance to develop on its own? Like, what if it was guided or even programmed from the womb? So, this isn't about fixing a disease. This is about predefining the mind, right? So, what are we really doing with this embryonic brain implants? Soft bioelectronics are embedded during fetal development, and they could enhance early memory encoding or sensory integration, provide adaptive support or emotional regulation, and also stimulate neural pathways for attention, language, or learning. But here's the twist. So, when you shape how someone thinks before they even get to try, actually, is that growth or is that design? Unlike adult brain interfaces like the cochlear implants, or you have some deep brain simulators as well. So unlike these, fetal implants act during a stage of extreme neuroplasticity, meaning they could they could permanently alter the brain development trajectories. Now, let's say we implant every fetus with the same optimized algorithm for focus and emotional resilience. Now, that might lead to a generation that's more efficient, logical, regulated, etc. But what might we lose? So, every technology has both its advantages and disadvantages. Here, creativity that comes from mental chaos and risk taking that fuels innovation, and personality traits that can emerge from unpredictable wiring, all of these could actually be lost. So now, could we be raising brains that are smarter but they all think alike? So let's ground this in existing science. Research on sensory substitution devices like using touch to see, etc. It allows the adult brain to it shows that the adult brain is actually capable of radical adaptation to technological inputs. Now, neuroprosthetics and brain computer interfaces in adults also show that we can influence attention, decision making, and even mood. Now, apply all of that to a fetal brain where circuits haven't even stabilized yet. The impact would be orders of magnitude higher, and it may even be irreversible. Okay, so if we design consciousness before it forms, are we creating stronger humans or just predictable ones? Now, let's take this further. What happens to diverse minds in a world full of engineered brains? Next slide, please. Yeah. So now, think of the smartest, most original person you know. Maybe someone unpredictable, intensely focused on some a niche interest, or who's very creative. Now, imagine a future where their brain would have been flagged during development as non-standard and quite optimized away. Would that person still exist, or would they still be them actually? Now, embryonic brain implants may soon be able to adjust attention systems, regulate emotional responses, and uh, alter your learning styles or memory encoding. So that sounds like enhancement, right? But here's the ethical question: is this really about helping or about normalizing? Traits which are seen in autism, ADHD, or dyslexia are often framed as problems, but they also come with some unique strengths like intense focus, pattern recognition, divergent thinking, high emotional sensitivity. So these are the core of neurodiversity, which are like the natural variation in human cognition. Now, in a world where neuro enhanced minds are the new standard, what happens to those who think differently or choose not to implant? Now, parents may feel pressure to use implants just to give their child a level playing field. Those who don't or can't may be seen as less capable, even if they are different, even if they're simply different. That's it. In essence, so technology meant to diversify potential could actually end up shrinking it. So, are we actually building a world which celebrates difference, or the one that edits it out? So, one person's enhancement is another's erasure is the final conclusion we can get upon this. So this isn't a scientific question; it's more like a cultural one, a human one. Okay. So far we have looked at the privacy, programming minds, and diversity. So what ties it all together is the question of who gets to decide what kind of brain is worth having. Now that's where we close on the promise that the power and the deep ethical responsibility of this technology. Okay. Next slide, please. So we are coming to a conclusion. So as we're nearing the end, I think we all have only this one big question. So is this real? We've talked about privacy before death. Privacy before birth. The possibility of designing someone's consciousness, and the ethical tension between enhancement, the like neuro enhancement and neurodiversity. So now, as I mentioned, so all of us are probably thinking, is this even real? Like, can we actually do this? So here's the truth. The idea of implanting soft bioelectronics in the brain, that's very real. So these devices are already exist and are being tested in animal models. They're flexible, biocompatible, and they're capable of long-term brain interfacing, like Roshna mentioned before. Okay, so all of this, the idea is completely real, and the concept of intervention is also real, like the concept of fetal intervention. So we already perform surgeries on fetuses to correct developmental disorders, so this is possible. But is this being done in human embryos for cognitive engineering? Not yet. There is no clinical case of a human embryo or a fetus receiving a brain implant for enhancement. But based on current trends, it's not science fiction either. It is scientifically plausible in the near future, and that's why we need to talk about it now before it becomes real without any rules. So we are on the edge of something powerful. It's not just engineering brains, but engineering what kind of humans we want to create. So I would like to conclude this with one question, and it's for you all to ponder. The real question isn't, is it real? It's when it becomes real, will we be ready for it? Next slide. So thank you for joining us today, guys. So I hope this is one of the very interesting topics for us to research upon too. And you guys, as Roshna already mentioned about the paper from which we, took this topic, you guys can delve into this topic even further. So as I mentioned, there are all these ethical responsibilities that come associated with it, even though it is a marvelous technology, and it has been tested on on animal models as well, and uh, the working behind this is also very interesting to look at. So even though we have achieved all of this, we still have a lot more questions unanswered, and we need to look into that aspect as well. So you guys can look into this further and try to see how much this topic can actually go into, what more there is to it, and you can get back to us on that. You can so that we can discuss further upon this. Thank you so much for joining. Do you guys have any questions to ask us? All right. I believe there's no questions to ask. So thank you so much for joining in today, guys.